Welcome back, everybody. My name is Matt. This is Flatland Relics. In this video, I'm going to be removing the pickup truck bed off the WM300. There's a lot of extra nuts and bolts on this. There's a lot of extra metal from the fire department adding all kinds of structure to it so it can plow through and hit trees and not get destroyed. So this probably takes a little bit longer than a normal bed removal. Oh yeah, and every single bolt has to get cut, so it does take longer than normal. For some reason, this side was a little more troublesome. These extra plates, I believe they were just so you could stand on the fenders and you would never dent them. So I don't need them on the fenders, obviously. So I'm going to take these plates off and I do a combination of drilling and grinding and whatever I can do to get the bolt out. A lot of these bolts are past the point of no return. Some of them you try and impact them off and they just snap right away. So, I just drill the heads out. That way I can punch them through. Like I said, I use a combination of a grinder, a drill, ratchets, impact, whatever works. If you see sometimes I pick up the wire wheel and what I do is I just wire wheel the threads of the bolt to give it a little more, just to clean it up. So if that nut that's on the back is going to break, it'll break a lot easier. Just try and get it down to bare metal and get rid of some of the rust with the wire wheel. And sometimes it helps. Sometimes it doesn't do anything at all and the bolt just snaps. You never know, but I figure cleaning it up a little bit just helps get that nut to spin off. And here I'm just using a drift and punching it through after I obliterated the head of the bolt with the drill bit. Right here is a perfect example. I'm just hitting the head of the bolt with the wire wheel and breaking off that crusty layer that's on it. That way the wrench fits better and you get a tighter fit, or the socket fits better. It does help. Here I had to knock the bolt out of the socket with the drift. It just got stuck in there. These old crusty bolts, they'll do anything to test your patience. So you just got to take your time and break it down one bolt at a time. This tailgate hinge is completely whooped also, but I decided to pull it and get all the brackets, put them all in a bag and just save them. We'll use them later on down the road. I don't think that hinge bar is fixable. Everything's fixable with enough time and energy, right? I don't think I have the patience to fix that hinge bar. It might be easier to just buy a piece of pipe or just figure out a different path on the tailgate. I know tailgates for these are very, very difficult to find that aren't completely destroyed. Yeah, so I'm just popping off this bar. I think it was like 6 or 9 bolts altogether, and just gonna keep all those hinge attachment parts. Some of these bolts still had the original Dodge stamp on them, and it was still visible. They're a little crusty, but not as crusty as those bolts for the fender plates. So they were a little bit nicer. I'm not sure if they're reusable. I'd have to go through and clean them up and really look at them. It's just cool when you pull an old bolt and it's got the original factory Dodge stamp on it. There's a hinge bracket on each side. Then there's like a big flat bracket in the middle. I think this breaks free right about here. I just put everything aside. We'll deal with this stuff later. Just wanted to take it off the bed. One less heavy object to lift when I lift the bed, right? I'm not sure if this is a factory bumper bracket or if it's something that got added. It's probably a bracket that got added, but it's for the factory holes. Had to pull these bolts. These are on there pretty good. Any of these bolts, if they were, like I said, if they're able to undo themselves without breaking, they're always a bit of a struggle. You know, they're pretty roughed up at this point. So the overall goal is I wanted to get all the brackets and everything loose. I had to find all the bolts that are holding the actual bed to the frame. It's more than just the, there's like 6 or 8 long like carriage bolts that go through the wood that used to be in the bed. In fact, you can see one right there, right at the top of the screen, that big circle. That's one of them. I knew those were there, but I wasn't sure what else was bolted to the bed, to the frame, kind of where, you know, it seems like there's some extra brackets from the fire department upgrades that they did, or upgrades, I'm not even sure you can call it upgrade, from adding all the brackets and metal that they did to make it a little stronger. So I had to like just look around and find all those bolts, and hey, there's one. And here I'm starting to pull the gas tank. Had to get to this from underneath. I think I just pinched the ratchet up top so it would sit still, and then just, got it from the bottom with a long extension. This gas tank was empty, but it still stunk really bad. There's like a very, very little bit of fluid, but it's not, I don't even know if it was gas or if it was just water that had got in, or condensation at this point. So just kind of pulled one strap and then pulled the other one. You'll see me working on it. There we go. Yeah. There appears to be a big skid plate underneath the gas tank. That, again, looks like it's something that was made. It has some like torch cuts in it and stuff. I doubt that's a factory piece, but I don't know. I do not have a truck finished for me to go over and look at and be like, oh yeah, this piece is definitely factory. I just kind of look at it, and if it looks a little suspect, I figure it for a fire department add-on, or somebody added it along the way to make it a little tougher. Here I'm cutting the it's like the connector hose from the filler stem to the inlet on the gas tank. Like I said, I knew this was empty. I knew this truck hasn't had gas in it in 50 years, 40 years, whatever it's been. I would not take a grinder to a gas tank if I was in any other situation, but I was aware that this one was okay and safe to do that. So just be very careful. Ooh, look at all that. Nice corrosion. Good 70s gas right there. But like I was saying, if you're ever grinding on a gas tank or anything, it's kind of a death wish. Gas will explode if it catches on fire, so you'll have a very big flash. Just be very careful doing anything like that. Just because it happens here doesn't mean it's safe to do it in other places. There is plenty of tree branches and debris and dirt and concrete. You can see it all on top of the tank. Maybe I should have vacuumed it, but sometimes it's easier just to sweep it up under the truck. Getting this here, it kind of hung up on like one spot, and I had the jack under it just kind of as a little bit of a safety. But yeah, there we go. I wasn't sure exactly how heavy it was going to be, but after that skid plate was out, the tank itself was not that bad. Like I said, there was like, I don't know, a couple shots worth of liquid in there sloshing around, but nothing, not even a cup. You definitely want to consider the weight of a tank if you think it's full. And like I said, don't go cutting off stuff with a grinder. That's a one-way ticket to blowing yourself up. So don't do that, unless you know the condition of it. Here I wanted to keep the straps from just getting really deformed, so I'm just zip tying them back to the hole before I jump to the other side and unbolt them completely. For some reason, because I couldn't get my hand through a couple of those spots I needed to, this took way longer than it should have, and actually started to get me a little angry. There are 4 pieces that strap the gas tank in. There's 2 top straps that are a little heavier than the bottom ones, and they come off. If you take both bolts out of one side, you'll have 2 loose pieces. The top and the bottom piece will be loose. And if you go over and unbolt the other side, you can get the top and bottom of that off. And you see just more debris. There's some crusty spots on this truck. The wood for the bed boards is completely gone. There's only a couple tiny little pieces left. So that's all deteriorated and made all kinds of dirt. Plus, there's just, like I said, there's tree branches, there's just dirt, there's mud, there's concrete. There's a lot going on with the debris on this. And that little piece of angle caught all kinds of stuff over the years. So it's just kind of accumulated there. Here I'm cleaning those threads up just to make it a little easier to break the nut loose and back it off the threads. I do think it definitely helped here. I don't really hit these with any penetrant or anything. It's kind of pointless if I'm just going to start ratcheting immediately. Some of the bolts actually do come apart pretty decently, as long as the threads weren't ever mangled at any time or crushed. Get that rust off of there and just try and break it free. And if you don't have to cut it, don't. Anytime I don't have to run the grinder is a win. The bottom two straps I took off probably aren't reusable. They're kind of bent up and the hardware is a little rough. The fasteners on them are kind of rough. There's two top pieces and they're heavier gauge metal, and I'll probably be able to reuse those. But I save all that stuff in case I need to make a pattern later or figure out a way to rebuild or fix the ones that I have. Here, I'm just drilling out some small bolts that were so rusted you couldn't even get a socket on them. And someone had added kind of like a protective grill, so to speak, over the brake light. The one that you can see is actually just a reflector. The other one, the brake light's underneath that curved grill piece. So I had to pop the bolts off of there in order to get the bed off. There's the tank. There's the mess that was on top of the tank. Look at all that. That's just the dirt that was on top of the tank. Here's another bracket that connects the running board to the front portion of the rear fenders. 3 bolts holding that bracket to the fender and 2 bolts holding the bracket to the side of the running board. There is not a lot left. As you saw, the bolts going through the running board, I mean, they're almost rusted to nothing. There should be an entire piece of pipe there. You can see a small portion. You can see a small portion of the pipe, but that's what's left from everything that rusted away. That should go all the way to the end of the running board, and it's not even there anymore. So this side definitely had a little more rain and runoff throughout the years as it was stored. So this side's a little rougher. Those bolts, there was like nothing left. But yeah, I had to pop this bracket off each side, and they didn't go very easily. You can see all the rust and crust just falling from the bottom of the running board as I try and pry this bracket off. There was one of these on each side, and yeah, they were definitely a struggle. Not the easiest. Not the easiest to break free. This one was still connected to the pipe, so I had to cut what was left of that pipe. And then right here, the front of that rear fender, whatever hangs down below that bracket got all bent up. So that has to get kind of mashed back or kind of bent back to being straight, so that way I can get in and cut the 3 connector bolts that hold them. These are, these are like undercarriage bolts, so they're really bad. I think on the other side I tried to use a ratchet and break them free, and it was completely pointless. I just ended up cutting all 6 of them. There's 3 on each side. Just a quick word to the wise. I know I use a grinder in a lot of video footage. I do not use the guard. I've been using grinders for years. I understand how unsafe they are. And when I'm cutting underneath somewhere where the grinder could kick back and hit me, I have a full face guard on. A full ANSI rated plastic face cover. And then a lot of times you can see I have my hood up. That's just one more layer of defense to not get any metal in my hair or just have stuff falling into my hat, because then it can fall down in your eyes later when the face shield is not on. So I try and keep myself covered with like an extra layer while I'm doing this really crusty cut up work. Yeah, I think I just hit the fender and the 3 bolts popped out, and there you go, broke free. So here I get rid of what's left of the bed boards. It's a very small amount of just dry rotted wood, but if you get it out of the way, it gives you a nice room to get the grinder blade in and make a nice cut. So this is one of those long bed bolts. I didn't even try and undo these. I just cut them all. I think there was only 6 when there should have been 8 or 10 total, but some of them weren't in the bed anymore at all. So yeah, just cut the top off, hammer them out through the bottom. Sometimes you got to pull them through. They get caught up on stuff. They get caught on the frame. Here I decided to chisel a little bit of concrete off this bed support crossbar, whatever it's called. So here I found another bracket that goes from the frame to the inside rear of the rear fender. That makes sense. It goes to the back of the rear fender, so to speak. This had 2 bolts that go through the bracket onto the frame, and I didn't really feel like messing with them. So what I did is I tried to disconnect them. Here I got my head completely in the way. Nice work, Matt. Can't see anything besides sparks. That was pointless. Here, I cut these bolts. I think there was 2 of them. And then the bracket was also bolted to a piece of metal angle that was down there. So I feel like this is all add-on stuff. Not the bracket itself, but the other piece of angle by the fender. I don't know. I'll have to check a finished fender and see what that looks like. I did have to take my face shield off here because it was fogging very bad and I couldn't see it all, and I feel like that's a little more dangerous. It's funny how immediately after I say, hey, wear your face shield, because grinders are really unsafe. I'm like, yeah, so I had to take the face shield off here because it started fogging. They do make anti-fog wipes. I've never had any luck with them. I just cut a little more carefully, and I try not to twist or put the blade on a weird angle while it's running. I let it go in kind of perpendicular to whatever I'm cutting. When you start twisting it and moving your arm while the blade's fixed in the cut, that's when you'll shatter one and it'll just explode. Here's that same bracket, but on the other side of the truck. This is the passenger side. As you can see, I got the bolts out, so we're no longer connected to the bracket holding it to the frame. And then what you have to do in order to get the bed off is you have to slide it back. Once all the bolts and hardware are out, you have to take this and get it past that one bracket. So what I do is I just slide it back. I did this on both sides, and that's all you need right there. The bed's light enough that it'll go. And there's that bracket that I took the bolt out of earlier. There was like a top shot with me with just my hands, and you can see both the breaker bar and the ratchet. They were squeezing the frame really tight, and rather than try and get in there and bend them and all that, I just cut them both off. If they're factory brackets, so be it. I just wrecked two of them, but at this point I was gunning to get this bed off the frame, and there you go. We're loose now. I feel like I need to say something real quick. Rigging is very dangerous, and if you're lifting a lot of weight off the ground, don't ever go underneath it. Keep yourself out from under it. You never know what can happen. Here, I just took a old sling that I had from work, and I just got it so I could lift the thing. I didn't take the time to center it or do anything right. And it's a perfect example of what not to do, yet it still works. Now, had I leveled the bed and lifted it level, I wouldn't have to worry about all these problems I'm having right here where little sheet metal edges are catching bolts and frame brackets and stuff, and this just becomes a royal pain in the butt. So, in hindsight, I should have took the time to rig it correctly and flat. I'm sure there's people that have worked with cranes that are looking at this like this kid's out of his mind. But hey, it works. I did get the bed off the truck. It did fight me a lot. Something like this, it doesn't have a ton of structure, like as you lift it, it twists and it goes out of square and all kinds of things. So it's just a pain in the butt no matter how you do it. And here, as I roll the truck out, like one bedside catches and the other bedside catches. And I don't know. Had I had a little help, it might have went a little easier. Whatever. I just wanted to get this done. Wanted to get the bed off the truck. It was getting late. This is a work night for me, so I already put in a full day before I decided to start doing all this. So yeah, I like things to happen expedited, as they say. Here's another perfect example. If I just took a minute and actually centered the hook and everything, this would have went a lot easier. But it worked. I don't know. I feel like if this was heavier and there was anybody else besides me in there, I would take more time to properly lift all this. But this is just a couple 100 pounds. It's not too bad. I even went to try and tie this in a knot here, which was, I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, that's not going to work. Let me untie that real quick. Figure out another way to loop it through and hook everything back. You can see how bad the one corner is coming up real high. The other one's not. If I had bedboards in here, this might have went a lot smoother. But I knew it wasn't going to stay square. I knew it was going to give me all kinds of problems. I knew it was going to get a little bent up, but it'll bend back. I'm not too worried about it. This bed's pretty shot. I don't even think I'll be able to reuse it. It's really rough. It was used as a concrete wheelbarrow, so all that white stuff is not paint. That's actually like an 1/8 inch of concrete stuck to the side of the sheet metal. I took some time to wire wheel some of it, and man, after like over an hour, I had like a square foot done. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to reuse this or not. And just like that, she's off. That's probably the first time the bed's been off this truck in easily 40 years. Maybe even more. I was happy to get this far. Like I said, don't watch this to learn how to do any type of rigging whatsoever. Here's some of the mess of taking the bed off. And you can see I got it on some sawhorses just kind of sitting. I have a roller cart. I'm going to put that on. We'll deal with that at another time. I'll need to get some help to do that. There's some of the nice concrete that spilled over. The front of that bed is completely pushed in and bent, and it's bent so bad the metal actually has stress tears. So up by the top corners, you can't really see it there, but here's the truck. Nice frame showing now. There's one of the brackets for the bed. Crusty old rim. Some old split rings. We'll definitely be doing some videos about some split rings. How to undo them. How to undo them safely. And how to put them back safely. They are dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. But they're not that bad if you do know what you're doing. And there she sits. So that's it for this week. Hope everybody enjoyed the video. See you on the next one.